I'm Gary Null. Let's now go over and say hello to my guest who is standing by, Gerald Celente. Nice to have you with us today, Gerald.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Gary.
Gerald, let's take a look at the trends that you see unfolding before us and what will be the outcome from your perspective, considering that Americans just saw the biggest monthly income drop in 20 years, and that we're also looking in Bulgaria, where the government resigned as a result of massive protest. And we're looking at Spain, that now has a youth unemployment of 50%. We're looking at Slovenia, that is in the midst of major scandals, and tens of thousands of people are marching in the streets. And we look in Ireland, where tens and tens of thousands have taken to the streets against austerity policies, and they're refusing to pay new taxes. In the United Kingdom, the same is happening. In Scotland, the same is happening. In Catalonia, they are wanting to become sovereign. And you're looking at Italy, that's really upended everyone, with the new populist person there and his five-star movement saying no. Beppe Grillo is led 25% of the new government. They're saying, we're not giving you any more money. We don't want in the European Union. Let's vote on it and let the public decide. And so any reason that we should be concerned in the United States based upon what's going on around the rest of the world, we seem to choose not to be aware of or care about?
Yeah, well, how about the Queen having diarrhea and having to go to the hospital?
That's important.
And of course, the sinkhole story that was in the news for so long. I mean, it's a tragic story, but people are dying every day. It's not national news. And so what it is a diversion, and the American people are basically out of touch with what's going on or don't want to look at reality. As a matter of fact, this next TrendsJournal, the spring edition that we're working on, it's called We Don't Want to Hear It. And for all the reasons people are tuning out. They either are afraid to hear it, they don't want to believe they're living a lie, or they don't have the courage to do something about what they know about what's going on. So, for example, we just went through, you remember the whole beginning of the end of last year, we were going to go over a fiscal cliff. So they had fear and hysteria running very well throughout last year. And now, of course, they come up with a new word, sequestering, what's that? So what it all is, I said, more fear and hysteria. And people should be looking very closely at what's going on as some of the countries you mentioned, in Portugal, in Slovenia, in Hungary. Matter of fact, in Portugal last week, millions of people took to the streets. Never made the broadcast news in the United States. The week before, several million took to the streets in Spain. You're looking at what's going on in Greece. It's continual riots all the time, suicide rates off the charts, poverty levels at record levels. Oh, and by the way, right here in the good old USA, I believe the number came out yesterday in New York about the homeless, about 50,000 people sleeping in homeless shelters. That doesn't count all the ones that are on the streets and undercounts really the tragedy of what's going on. So what we're looking at what's going on in Europe is a signal of what's going on here, with the exception that the people in Europe have the courage to stand up and speak out and fight back. While the Americans are, we're the most obese nation. They can hardly get up off the couch. We're prescription drugged to death. Our brains are brain dead. So the people don't have the will to fight, and they keep supporting it's the Stockholm Syndrome. They keep supporting those who torture them. Going back to Italy, Gary, this is the most important trend that everyone should be looking at. Beppe Grillo's five-star movement. He has gotten 25% of the vote, more than any other party, 26% actually. The other two, the Bersani and the Berlusconi, the separate parties, have coalitions, so they didn't really get that many votes per party. The importance of it is, Gary, he did it without ever sitting in front of a camera run by the prostitutes in the mainstream media. It was an online revolution. Beppe Grillo has the biggest following on Facebook and Twitter than any other European politician. And, of course, they denounced him as a comedian. Oh, these other guys aren't comedians? Oh, Berlusconi's not a comedian? Oh, Obama, Bush, Clinton, show politics is show business for ugly people. Oh, they're just buffoons? So they try right away by putting the word comedian in front of it. That already puts in your brain, write this off, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Because all the people that are also going into the parliament are people that are totally disconnected from the political systems. This is huge. This is a revolt underway that's undermining the parties in Italy. And it's a movement that could really start to bring about some freedom and true democracy, because one of the major elements of Beppe Grillo's party is direct democracy. Let the people vote. And if anybody wants to see of what let the people vote looks like, go back to 2 days ago and see what they did in the world leader of direct democracy, Switzerland. The people voted to stop giving these fat cat corporate heads and bankers all of these salaries that are fit for pigs and princes, and let the shareholders vote on them. The people voted 67% in Switzerland to put a rein on this corporate takeovers that are ruining countries, not only in Switzerland, companies in Switzerland, but around the world. That's direct democracy. And what Beppe Grillo wants to do is let the Italian people vote. Do you want to stay with the euro, or do you want to go back to the lira? Let the people vote. Direct democracy, to me, Gary, is the only way out of this. And people say, well, that's mob rule. Well, what do you think that's going on now? A mob is ruling. And you want to see how the mob is ruling? Just look at that little thing that just happened, a couple of days ago that probably nobody saw. That's right. The Senate passed a resolution that allows, if Israel is attacked or they attack, then we, the people of the United States, are obligated to support them. Yeah, it's out of our hands. Why should we have anything to do with it? And now they're also talking about the headline news. It's heating up. Clock runs out as Obama faces pressure for striking Iran. Oh, yeah, you want to strike Iran? How about asking us? So I believe that the Beppe Grillo model is the model to look at.
Okay, so we can get more issues and little shorter answers. Now, I believe that it's inevitable, absolutely inevitable, that Israel and its extreme right-wing and fascistic government will cause a war with Iran. I believe when that happens, economically, China will see this as its opportunity to make a economic move where it will not be afraid then to challenge the United States currency. It will have Russia, India, Brazil, and over 20 other countries on its side when it does this, because it's been working on this since 2005. And so where we will be militarily helping Israel, they will be economically using this with a war with Iran to shift away from any longer buying our dollars, dropping the value of the dollar on the market, raising the value of their currency, and in effect shifting the United States, when no one was paying attention, out of having the reserve currency, which will then cause hyperinflation, interest rates through the roof, real estate will plummet, the value of a dollar will drop substantially, and could cause a major world turner economically. That's a hypothesis that is possible. What in that hypothesis do you see as plausible?
Well, the first one you mentioned about China. Look what they're doing. As the United States is waging wars and sending our money overseas, they're becoming the biggest purchasers of gold, along with Russia. And why are they purchasing gold? So that they could back the yuan with something that means something rather than quantitative easing and a debasement of the currency. So as they continue to trade more around the world, what they're doing is they're trading in yuan and replacing the dollar as the reserve currency along with the other BRIC nations that you mentioned. So that's what they're doing, and the strategy is right there in front of everybody's eyes. And by the way, as we look at this and look what's going on, China is now also becoming the largest importer of oil. Do you think they're going to stop buying oil from Iran? Do you think they're going to stop buying oil and doing more in Africa? And by the way, Gary, that's why the French invaded Mali. It's about the Chinese and the India trying to get uranium out of Niger, which of course France, 75% of their electricity is nuclear powered, and they need cheap uranium. So they're exploiting it from there. And also a story that's not making the news. And by the way, I'm mentioning this because Africa is going to become the next battleground. Already the United States is in 35 countries with their AFRICOM units. Mali last year extracted over 50 tons of gold, and this is a dirt-poor country. And that's up from 43 tons a year before. So you can see what this is all about.
Couple quick questions about the United States. Many of us see that there are multiple economies, and that the most important economy is the economy of Wall Street because it does not help the rest of America's economies. It does not help the poor, the middle class, the business class, the working class. It only helps the major corporations, fund managers, the hedge funds, and equity partnerships. So it's a closed insular system. But it's extremely powerful. It owns the Washington politicians. What do you see the likely outcome in this bubble of the bubble of Wall Street? I believe it should be around 6,000, and I believe we're in for a major correction. And then I see the real estate market taking another tumble, and I see the value of the dollar strong now because of the euro. But I see the euro imploding because I don't see Italy staying in the euro when this populist position goes forward. And then I see in succession, I see Spain, Ireland, Portugal, all going behind Italy because Italy has the third largest debt to 125% debt to its gross domestic product. I see that causing a crush on the euro. I see that the dollar is going to be shaky. What do you see?
I see the same thing. I don't necessarily see inflation. What I see more is a devaluation of the currencies. So, for example, if you live in Zimbabwe and you buy a pound of coffee, the pound of coffee hasn't gone up. It just takes you more Zimbabwean dollars to buy it. So that's what I see as a devaluation of all of these currencies. But I also see war, and the wars are going on, and people don't want to call it what it is. There's a war in Portugal. You have millions of people taking to the streets. The suffering that's going on. I just got an email today from a subscriber to the TrendsJournal in Portugal. He said 7 out of his 10 friends are out of work, and these are college-educated people. I get emails from Italy about the people that are starving, that can't make ends meet. I have friends in Greece that have lost everything. Their shops have closed up, and they don't know where their next dime is going to come from, and they froze just about all winter long. This is war. It's called class war. And then you have wars going...
Okay, how long do you see before what I had predicted, and you with me over 2 years ago, where they throw out the politicians, take over the buildings, and literally close down their governments to create a new government and rescind all debt? When do you see that happening, or do you see it
happening now? But here's what I'm concerned about. I get these emails coming out of Greece, for example, about what's going on between the military and the government, and people in the military refusing to commit acts of violence against their own people. So what the government's doing is bringing in mercenaries to protect them. So it's not going to be an easy change. And the same thing is happening in Portugal, and Italy is preparing for it. And right here in the good old USA, you keep hearing about all of these stories about Homeland Security buying up all of these rounds of ammunition. So the governments know this is coming down. They know they can't support it, and it goes back to what you were saying, Gary, about when the stock market is going to crash. It's very simple. It's a very simple equation. It's going to happen one of two ways. Number one, when they raise interest rates, because the only thing that's just keeping this market alive, and you could go back to Davos a couple of weeks ago when they talked about the big news in Davos was LBOs, leveraged buyouts. Because money's so cheap, you could do all these scams. When interest rates go up, then the market goes down. The only reason why people are investing in the stock markets, the average person, is because you can't put money in the bank and get any interest on it like the old days when there was a thing called savings. Number two, as I said, they're heating up the rhetoric for war. The Middle East is ready to explode again. Egypt is in a deep depression. It's unraveling. Tunisia, they're rioting again on the streets. As I said, Bahrain, Yemen, Libya. The Italians couldn't get natural gas yesterday because of wars going on in Libya between the tribes. And also they brought in mercenaries to protect those assets as well. So what I'm saying is there's going to be some kind of a flashpoint, be it false flag or real, that is going to rattle the world markets. One of those things, interest rates going up, a stopping of all of this quantitative easing or dumping cheap money into the system. This is a Federal Reserve-inspired recovery, or a false flag or real. And when I say false flag or real, just look what happened when Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast. It almost shut it down. Could you imagine a dirty bomb going off in New York, a suitcase-sized nuke going off in London? Could you imagine biological warfare in France? That's what we're looking at. If the psychopaths continue to invade and occupy other nations.
Gerald, we're out of time. I appreciate you taking your time and insight. Gerald Celente is one of the pioneers of trend research. He founded the TrendsResearchInstitute, and they published the TrendsJournal. And the website is TrendsResearch.com, the publication of TrendsJournal. Gerald, thank you for being on. We look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks so much for having me, Gary.
I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening.